Hey, I'm Troy Jackson with Undivided, and I'm excited to share with you for just a few minutes about an amazing set of tools we have called relational organizing. As we enter into what is sure to be a contentious season and a contentious year, we need to find places where we're connecting with friends and family, those we care about, those we love, in ways that are redemptive, in ways that are not defined by the polarizing and all too often toxic environment that our political and public life has become. So what we want to do in just the next few minutes is share a little bit about this simple yet amazing way to have a different kind of conversation and environment in 2024 and beyond. And it begins with relational organizing. A lot of studies have been done about what moves people in election seasons and in political climates. And believe it or not, it's not getting 1,000 text messages, and I'm sure we're getting ready for that. It's actually not the toxic things we see on social media. More effective than all those things, even the advertisements that candidates and parties and issue campaigns run, far more effective are conversations that are rooted in warmth, empathy, and respect with people we know and already have some trust in that relationship. So what we're going to be inviting you to do is to make a list of 10 or 15 or maybe even 20 people that you know that you want to have a different kind of conversation with about what's happening in your state and in this nation, that's rooted in your values and your experiences and rooted in their values and experiences. We're calling these redemptive, non-partisan, non-persuasion conversations. In other words, this is not about division. This is not about convincing someone of anything. It's not a debate. It's not trying to convince someone to vote a certain way or vote in general. It's about what do we have at stake in public life, and let me hear and listen well to my neighbor, friend, fellow parishioner, or colleague. So I want to share a couple of documents with you, and you should have these also as a part of your training. But the first is simply what this conversation could look like. And we've built what we're calling a relational organizing conversation template. So in a season of great tension and division, really reaching out to those you know is important. And what follows is not a script. These are suggestions. It's really important. You know the relationship, you know the context, you know this person. It's far more important that you be yourself and authentic rather than read a script or say all the right things. This is not about saying the right thing. It's not about making a mistake or not. This is about being a friend or being a colleague or being a family member. It should be rooted in love and connection, not trying to get every iota right. So what I would encourage are 4 moves in these conversations. And note that these should be conversations, not text messages. This is not an email exchange. This is not a social media, Facebook Messenger conversation. These should be either face-to-face, which is the best, not always possible, on the phone, or even over a Zoom call. And move 1, I call it just connect, greet, and share purpose for the conversation. And this is about clarity. And if I could add to it right now in real time, I would say warmth. You should be invitational in your connection. And here's just a sample of what you might say. I'm reaching out to people in my life during this contentious political season in Michigan. And I'd love to just share with you some of the values I'm bringing into 2024. And I'd really love to listen to what is on your heart and mind. What's troubling you? What has you excited? Do you have 10 minutes to talk now about this? Or would you prefer to set a time that works better in the next week or so? And assuming they say yes now, great. They may say, hey, I'm getting ready to put dinner on the table, or hey, I am running out the door. go ahead and say, hey, can we set a time? Get out your planner, get out your calendar, get out your phone, and actually make an appointment. Don't just leave it if you can. Now, if they don't want to have a conversation, again, we want this to be redemptive, non-partisan, non-persuasion. You can just say, thank you for considering it. If you change your mind, please reach out. I'd love to have a different kind of conversation than what's going on in our culture with you. If they say yes, and I think most will, again, these are not people that are strangers to you. These are people you know. The next thing is simply to say, hey, do you care if I start by sharing a little bit of a personal story about what's really on my heart as we enter in this 2024 season? And I would encourage you to share a short personal story, no more than 2 minutes. And you'll probably be getting some training around story today. It's important that it be vulnerable and it be specific. Find a moment that something that has affected you, something that's affected a child, one of your children, a parent, a sibling, a spouse, a close friend, and how that is animating your interest in public life and the political season we're in. And if you can speak to the value that brings to the surface, all the better. And those values can be things like integrity. It could be a value around racial justice, which is something that is very important to me and a lot of us at Undivided where I work. But name that and then really engage in listening well. That's the third move. So after being vulnerable and connecting, courage and curiosity. For the next 5 minutes or so, ask questions to get at the values and underlying experiences that are at the top of this person's concerns and hopes. A sample question might be, when you think about this coming political season, what are your biggest concerns or fears? What are your biggest hopes? And then this next move is really important. Is there an experience you or someone you love has had that has elevated this concern or hope for you or fear? Can you share more about that experience? And be willing to go down the road with them. They may, if you have modeled vulnerability, they may very well take the risk to be vulnerable with you as well. And it's important up here. I mentioned this person may share some deep and painful experiences and feelings. So I just say be present with warmth, empathy, and respect. Be willing to connect around the care framework and be engaged with them and a friend or a colleague or a family member. Love them well in that moment. And that may mean this is more than a 10-minute conversation. And that is not only okay, that's welcomed. And then there's the next steps, the activation stage. Simply saying, we have an election coming up in the fall, and no matter what happens or who wins, I hope we can be more connected as a community as we enter into 2025. I would love to have a quick follow-up conversation with you in the lead up to November. Would that be okay? If the conversation has gone well, you could say, hey, I'm part of a statewide effort to have a redemptive, nonpartisan, non-persuasion conversations in Michigan or wherever you may be in the coming months. Would you have interest in getting trained and involved in this effort so you could have these types of conversations with people in your life? We often call this in the work I'm involved in, the catapult. You get a commitment to have that follow-up conversation. The catapult would be, hey, do you want in? Assuming you're here in this training today because you're excited about a different kind of conversation and environment, an atmosphere in your community in 2024, maybe they're hungry for that as well. I suspect many are. If they are, point them to the next training opportunity, which means once you start rolling these out, you may want to be thinking about, is there a training happening in a local church or are you all going to do periodic statewide trainings? Maybe not the whole longer training you're doing today, but shorter trainings that can get people moving who are hungry to be involved in this work of relational organizing. I am super excited to be working with you on relational organizing in the coming months and being a partner through Stephanie Kreider and the great leadership team there in Michigan, and am eager for your questions and feedback and thoughts. But thank you for being part of this training today. And remember, you have relationships, and your relationships give you a chance to have a redemptive impact, not only on that relationship, but on the atmosphere in your community in the coming months. God bless.